Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are.
Welcome to Books That Make You. I'm Desiree Duffy, your host, and we're talking about books that make you join forces with some aliens to confront a mutual enemy and maybe, just maybe, have a little romance on the side. Let's bend some genres, shall we? Our guest today is award-winning author and BookFest Bellwether, Beth Freely. She is also a businesswoman, a publishing industry professional, and though she spent some time in Great Britain and was raised in upstate New York, she now calls New Mexico home. Her book, Beyond the Steps of Stone, takes readers into a carefully rendered future Earth where aliens and humans from the distant past must come together to confront a mutual enemy. We've got some evil aliens and a world-shaking prophecy, a second group of aliens who may not be so alien after all, and it all combines to take you, the reader, on a literary roller coaster ride that's going to keep you hanging on for your dear life until the final page. Beth, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Desiree. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
And I got to say, I love the background. You got your bookshelf all set up and you're now in your new home. So yes. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And you are a woman who has many talents, and we touched on some of them. I'm going to get into a little bit of everything. But first, if we may, can you tell us what is going on in your book?
What is going on in my book? Wow, there's a lot going on in my book. So Beyond the Steps of Stone was actually started out as an idea that a friend came to me about. And she's like, I got this idea, but I can't write it. You're the writer. And she pitched the idea, and before she could even flesh out anything, I had the prologue already done. You know, the what if Earth was seeded by aliens? What if, the concept of we are not the only ones in this universe, that there are other alien species, other, potential humanoids out there. And that's where I went with it. We aren't the only ones out there. There's another race of aliens that look just like us, that our DNA matches theirs. And what are their struggles and why have they come back to Earth? And that's all touched on in the book. But with everything that's been going on in our world as it is, whether or not you believe in climate change or with everything going on in the Middle East right now, the potential for a major war, what is the catalyst to save the human race? And I use some of that to push my characters into cryogenic stasis, but something goes wrong. They're only supposed to sleep for 500 years and they sleep for 2,000. And when they wake up, it's a different world. And they discover that the aliens are here and they look just like us. And what is going on? So my female lead character, Morgan Langtree, she's bound and determined to find out, are these guys here to take us over? Are these guys here to help us? What's going on? And so she infiltrates the alien camp and discovers a few things that she wasn't expecting.
Yeah. Can we talk about Morgan a little bit, your main character? Because she wakes up, it's like 1,500 years later than what she anticipated. Mm-hmm. What is she experiencing? Tell us more about her.
Morgan is a very strong female lead. She's a very strong character. She's an Army Ranger. She's the leader of her little group, which is known as Wraith Squadron. She has a fiery temper. She's a fiery redhead with a temper and all the passion that comes with a fiery redhead. She has a sixth sense that, she's always followed her gut And as you read through the book, you may discover that that sixth sense is a little bit more when that rolls into the prophecy. Um, she's very determined to protect her people, which is not just the people that were in cryogenic stasis with her, but also the people in Belize that she finds who believe their gods have come back. So she's very determined to figure out this mystery, and she's very determined to do it by herself at times, even though she has a team to back her up. There are just some things that she's like, no, I need to do this. I'm the leader. I need to go deal with this. I need you here. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. She has a very close relationship with her second in command, Alex, who is her best friend. They came through the ranks together, and he's a strong second in command, but he's also willing to every once in a while mentally smack his commanding officer upside the head, and gut check her, so to speak. And she appreciates that and everything.
Well, we all need that from time to time. Somebody to just be like, hey, check yourself.
And that's Alex. Yeah, that's Alex. What she was not expecting to discover was someone that she could actually fall in love with. Her military has always been her life, her career. She's a career woman, so to speak, except now her job is a little different because there's no military left. She's suddenly in command. And she has to kind of traverse through all of this and figure out her own feelings for Jericho. And, whether or not she is falling in love with him, while trying to, keep Earth from being invaded, so to speak.
Let's get into that, because you're bending some genres here so eloquently. Genres. Yeah, we got some romance, we got sci-fi. Talk about that, please.
I've always been a sci-fi fan from the time I was a little kid. I'm sure everybody's heard of a little movie called Star Wars. And that's the catalyst for not only me being a sci-fi fan, but also me being a writer. You get to a point where you can't run around your yard anymore chasing invisible bad guys without people looking at you like you're a little, strange. So, when I hit about 13, I started, turning and writing my ideas and my stories, and my imagination. I took it to paper, and like I said, when my friend came to me with the story idea, it just clicked. It was like, why can't you have sci-fi romance? We saw sci-fi romance in Star Wars. And it was very easy for me to just blend the two genres together without it being too sappy or too sci-fi. When people ask me about this book, I tell them, I said, it's science fiction without being the science in the fiction. It's a science fiction that anyone can pick up and read without losing themselves in gobbledygook talking about hyperspace and how you get there and whether or not the warp core is working. Yeah, throw a little Star Trek in there too while I'm at it. It's sci-fi without being so sci-fi that you can't understand it. It's romance without being so romance that the men that I know that have read this book, they've been like, this was great. I was like, you didn't think it was too sappy? They're like, no. So it's that delicate blend that appeals to everyone. And I'm hoping I can continue that delicate blend in the next book. But it was really easy for me to write. It was real easy. I love writing romance novels, but I also love the sci-fi aspect of writing as well, and writing books. So it just felt right, and it felt like a good niche as well for me.
I gotta say to Beth that I appreciate that, because so often readers aren't necessarily on these polar ends of a spectrum. And that's what you're doing. You're bringing things to the middle where, quite frankly, a lot of us are. There is definitely a market for what you describe, either the hard science fiction fans, where they want to know every intricate detail about how the thing works and the math behind it and all the technical things. And that's awesome if that's your thing. But it can really pull down a story for those that are just like, I want the fun stuff. I want the story. I want the synergy between the characters. And then on the other side of that spectrum too, if that storyline, that B storyline, a lot of times it's the love story, right? Chances are if there's a B storyline in a story, and most of them have at least one B storyline or a C storyline, it's romance. But if that gets too, sexy and tawdry and sappy, like you said, it just pulls it down. So I appreciate that you're bringing that together oh so eloquently. And doing that to create this world is not easy. So I'm curious about your world building methods. How did you build out this new time in history and these aliens and their culture? And how did you conceptualize that?
Wow. The original version of this book I wrote back in 2006. Okay, so it's been a while. The original conception of Earth 2,000 years in the future, it was that basically that doomsday scenario, which was the original scenario. War in the Middle East, Third World War, nuclear winter, usual stuff. When I started reworking the book, I said, I don't want to do a nuclear war. We know how that ends. With everything else going on with Earth, we've seen the Ring of Fire acting up. We've seen earthquakes in places where earthquakes don't usually happen. I decided, I took the base that I had, the base world that I built, which was what would Earth be like that far into the future, which included quite a few conversations with my dad, who was, who liked some sci-fi, but he also read a lot of different types of nonfiction books when we sat down and we actually discussed what Earth could be like in this scenario. So that's where some of the world building really came in, was, 10, 11 o'clock at night, sitting up with Dad over coffee, talking about a lot of these things and what is this world? What would this world be like if this or this or this happened? And then as I've revamped the book until I finally got it to where I published it, that world building just kind of continued and changed based on what was actually going on in our world right now. Ultimately, what you find in the book is still the same that came from the original draft, a world that has had no human influence for 1,500 years. Buildings have crumbled, no infrastructure left. Mother Nature has taken over. Mother Nature wanted her world back, and she's taking over. I did the research into looking at how nuclear fallout or nuclear winter would work, with some help from my niece. We sat down and actually, kind of laid out how this would work, so that as you get to the end of the book, Morgan actually explains to her team, this is what happened based on the information the Elorvians were able to give us. Mm-hmm. So we looked at that, and I said, okay, so where on Earth would this work? Where on Earth would we find a pocket of people, a mixed pocket of people? And the most logical place was Belize, because it's high enough up to miss any nuclear winter. There's places where people can hide. The stone temples also are a fantastic background for this story, and I had to use them. I didn't want to use the pyramids. I used them later. But those stone temples in Belize. So I did all the research on Belize. What is the Lamanai Valley area like? So a lot of research went into the world building. I can tell you that right now. A lot of research went into the world building. I just kept a notebook with all my notes and everything, and I've referred back to it and just kept building the world. And then, as I edited and re-edited the book, I just added these little things that I've added to my world building and just kept, just kept building it until I was happy with it. I know some people sit down and do world building, intricately with, they have a document, what is the infrastructure like? What is the politicals like? What is this like? I don't do that. I am very much a pantser, but I also do the research that goes with it. And that was pretty much how I did it.
And that makes perfect sense, again, with how you've built and blended your genres together.
Yeah.
And
plus with having the aliens being, the seeds of, helping seed Earth, it building their world and their environment and their culture was very easy because their culture influenced our culture and they kind of blend together.
Yeah. I gotta let you in on something. I'm digging this so much, Beth. I'm actually on my way to visit Belize for the first time.
Oh, I love it.
And I've been researching as a traveler, but you're right. The Mayan temples there and everything they have there. It is a blend too of many cultures in Belize. For as small of a country as it is, it's quite remarkable in that regard. So I'll take a copy of your book and read it while I'm traveling. And
awesome. Awesome. I love that idea.
Yeah. Now, I want to touch on, because you brought up talking with your dad, your niece, your friend that gave you the impetus of the idea. It really seems like you had a huge network of people that in one way or another were helping. It takes a village, so to speak. Yeah. Can you talk about that dynamic and maybe share some of what are people saying now? What are your friends and family saying now that the book is out and you've released it?
The dynamic when I started this, when my friend Pam gave me the idea, she actually kind of served as an editor for me at the time. And we worked back and forth together. And then, as people grow and mature and everything, friendships fall to the wayside and everything. And we parted ways. And she said to me, take the book, do whatever you want with it. I know you'll make it, perfect. Because I told her, I said, I want this to be darker. I said, there's a lot of things about the original manuscript I'm not happy with. I feel some of the dialogue was kind of immature. It originally had 2 female leads. I didn't want 2 female leads. I wanted 1 female lead, 1 male lead, and supporting characters. And we kind of parted ways. And I took the book and ran with it. As far as my dad goes, Dad really helped with the world building. And as you read the book, you find out Jericho has a tattoo on his chest. Somewhere in the remainder of my unpacking, there is a graph paper with my dad's handwriting all over it. That is the tattoo. And what each point on the tattoo corresponds with. And I remember we were up until like 2 or 3 in the morning that night when he drew that out for me. My dad loved the original version of this book, and unfortunately he passed away before he could read the final version. But I know my brothers read it, my sisters read it, and my brother was like, I know Dad loved this book. And my brother was like, he would have loved this final version. My family is beyond supportive. They always have been, especially my brother and sister. I'm the baby of the family. And they're always kind of like the first people I send a manuscript to. I wrote a short novella that I just published out in paperback, and I sent it to my sister, and I said, maybe this will help you remember our trip to Italy too. And because the story, there's a scene in that story that's a scavenger hunt, and it's all places in Florence that my sister and I stopped at when we were there. So, little things like that. I'm always sending them snippets. I'm always sending them stuff. When I was working on The Legend of Captain St. Pierre, my brother's a Navy man. He was career Navy, and I called him up. I said, Paul, I said, I need some help. And he's like, what's up? And I said, I need to know what this is called and what that's called and what this is called on a ship. I get a graphic from my brother emailed to me like 10 minutes later. Having those people still to bounce ideas off of is probably one of the best things ever. Having my brother and my sister I can bounce stuff off of. My nieces, I have 3 nieces who all aspire to be writers. My niece, Catherine, she actually is a script writer and has done stuff for Pendant Audio, has her own original story running through Pendant Audio, and I cannot be more proud of her for that. I still go to her and be like, Kat, hey, I tell me if I'm crazy. And she was one of the first people to read the most current version of Beyond the Steps of Stone right before I published it, because she had read it before and she was familiar with the story still. And I was like, read this, edit this for me, tell me what I'm missing, kind of thing. My 2 other nieces, one of them was big into writing historical romances. She seems to have her finger on the pulse of where to go research. And then Kat's younger sister, her and I still kind of, we kind of write stuff back and forth together and keep each other just rolling. So having that familial support still is wonderful. And then outside of my family, my best friend and co-writer on The Legend of Captain St. Pierre, Miriam, she's always there. She's my first line editor, always. I will send her a book and say, make sure I'm not missing something, and vice versa. So while the dynamic of the people of my network has changed over the last 20 years, the core, my nieces, my brother and sister, my best friend, and my husband, my current husband, my second husband, Daniel, that core has not changed. And those are the people that give me the most support. I come up with crazy ideas all the time, and I'll be cooking dinner and go, hey, babe, what do you think of this? And he'll be like, in what context, hon? Oh, sorry. But that core is still there, that dynamic is still there, and that network is still there. And as an editor, I've grown my network. And I have some other authors that I will bounce ideas off of now, and everything. But that core network, that familial core network of Miriam and Daniel, and even my daughter Caitlin, I cannot forget her, because she's now that she's older and she has started her own family, she understands a little better some of the crazy questions I'll ask her about a story. And she's even, she's come across with, well, why don't you try this, Mom? That network is the most important to me. And if I ever lose that, I'm probably done as a writer.
Well, it's wonderful how you've made that network grow and grow and grow, and that you have that. And as we've touched on, you are a businesswoman as well, and you are an editor, and you're helping other writers as well. So if you don't mind us shifting gears just a little bit, I'm curious, what advice, what tips, now that we've talked about growing your network and how you've written your book, what advice do you have for aspiring writers out there?
The best advice I can give any aspiring writer is stop worrying about the details and just write it. Just get it on paper. I tell all of my authors that. Get it on paper. The editing, the tweaking, the fixing, the showing, don't telling, all of that comes later. If you can't get the story on paper first, you have nothing to work with. It doesn't matter if it's good. It doesn't matter if it's bad. It doesn't matter if it's mediocre. It's yours. Get it on paper. We can massage it together later. Mm-hmm. I am all about encouraging my authors to write in their own voice. I don't care if they tell me instead of showing me. It's their voice. This is how they write. I know there are books out there about writing that tell you to do this, to do that, to do the other thing, and I throw every one of them out. Because if we all did that, we'd all have the same book. We'd all be telling the same story. We'd all be telling it in the same voice. So get it on paper. Don't worry about if it's good or not. We'll deal with that later. Get the story down, because that's your first step. If you're afraid to take that first step and to put it on paper, you're never going to write it. So just write it. Just get it out there.
What kind of authors, what kind of writers do you typically work with? Are you all genres? Are you
all genres? I work with all genres. And I've read some interesting stuff working with all genres too. And it's great. And I love it because I'm an avid reader anyway. So I like to read everything. I like to read nonfiction. I like to read fiction. I'll if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I need my book edited. Do you do this kind of work?" Yeah. Let me see what you got. And, there's different things with each genre that you have to look for. Things that I keep an eye out for, like if it's a horror story, is there too much gore? Is there not enough gore? Is there enough suspense? As a matter of fact, one of my authors is she just recently, 2 of her books just recently won the BookFest. She took awards in the BookFest. And she started out writing journal kind of entries that were humorous to help her get through some things in life. And then she kind of moved over into like lighthearted romance. And then she has this niche of writing horror stories. And I read them and I'm going, oh yeah, this is great stuff. And she's like, but Beth, she's like, it's so dark and it drags me down when I write it. And I'm like, yeah, but look at what you're doing with this stuff. This is great stuff. So there's, with every genre, I'm looking for certain things, but I will read and edit any genre. I enjoy reading. I enjoy helping other authors, and so I don't limit myself to just one genre.
That's so true. I talk to so many writers when they start out, they're like, I'm going to write in this genre. This is the genre I read. And then they just naturally go, I've heard that before. I'm writing romance. Now they're writing dystopian or horror or spy fiction or a mystery, or it suddenly turns literary, or they start writing their own story and it becomes a memoir. So it just, I love the fact that once you just start writing, and journaling, as you mentioned, is a great way to just start getting stuff on paper and see where it takes you.
See where it goes. Yes, see where it takes you. I never thought that I would enjoy the sci-fi romance niche as much as I did. And I love it. And the other niche that I'm finding very odd for me, knowing that I originally grew up in upstate New York, and I was never necessarily like a cowboy girl. Suddenly half of my male characters in my romance novels are cowboys. And I'm going, how did that happen? The lighthearted, fun kind of cowboy romance. And I'm going, where did that come from? But it's there. And I have fun writing it. And, and that's all that matters. You have to have fun writing what you're writing. My author friend who, she said, this is so dark. I go into such a deep, dark place when I write it. And I said to her one day, I said, are you enjoying the process? Well, yeah. Then stop worrying about it and just do it. And I think she's working on a 3rd book now for her, this, she didn't mean for it to start out as a series, but she's done so well with them. And she's gotten such great, response from it that I'm like, honey, this is your niche. Roll with it.
Yeah.
You write the other stuff too, but roll with this one. This is the way you're going.
And it is great advice to allow people and to give people permission to write for their own heart, write what makes them happy, write what gives them fulfillment. If they write for themselves first and other people gravitate toward that and enjoy it and want to read it, then that can become some of the most fulfilling type of writing, rather than trying to write toward a market or toward somebody else's taste, or because somebody else told you need to write this certain way.
I had an editor on St. Pierre that asked Miriam and I to lessen the role of one of the twin sisters in the book. And because of that, because she wanted us to fit that book in that teeny tiny little template genre of romance, we dug in our heels for 9 years. We said, no, we're not doing that. You need both twins to make this story work. I took that experience and I tell my authors, don't pigeonhole yourself into a genre format or a genre template. Because ultimately, again, that changes your story right for you. If you want to have 3 female leads in your book, knock yourself out. It's your book. It's your story. It doesn't have to fit.
Beth A. Freely, author of Beyond the Steps of Stone. Fabulous talking to you today. Can you let everybody know where...
Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll have you come back again when the next book comes out. For now, let everybody know where they can go and find you and find your book. Books.
You can find my books on Amazon.com, obviously. You can find everything on the Zon. But you can also go to my website, which is Beth, Beth, Anne, Anne, Freely, Freely.com. You can find all my books there. You can find my podcast interviews, which if you're a fan of British television, I recommend watching the one with the interview with actor Max Brown from The Tudors. You can also find me on Facebook at Beth A. Freely or Beth Ann Freely. I never remember which one it is, but also on Instagram and Twitter as B.A. Freely.
Excellent. Beth, thank you so much for being with us here today on the Books That Make You show. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me, Desiree. As always, I enjoy working with you and with BookFest and with Books That Make You.
Our absolute pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for being with us today as well. My name again is Desiree Duffy, and you can find out more about us on booksthatmakeyou.com. You can also follow on Facebook. We're on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, and we're on YouTube, and we're on TikTok. We're in all of the fun places. Follow us there. Subscribe to our Webby Award-winning newsletter. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The host and executive producer of the Books That Make You show is Desiree Duffy. Sound mastering and engineering by Dave Napox. Social media and content promotion by Siddhi Jahagirdar. Copywriting and editing by Mike Robinson. The Books That Make You show is an award-winning podcast produced by Black Chateau Enterprises.